I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about avoidant attachment style triggers. Okay, so this is going to be helpful for you if you have an avoidant attachment style or you're dating somebody with an avoidant attachment style.
Yeah.
Because we all have our own strengths and weaknesses in relationships. And understanding your partners and your own can help you navigate a situation when, things get tense, people get upset, disappointed, hurt. It's good to understand what might be going on within yourself or your partner to help you and not make the situation worse.
Right. And in relationships, there's always going to be something that reminds you of something that has happened in the past. So we'll start off by describing what a trigger is.
Yeah, what is a trigger? That's a good question.
It's something that brings up a past hurt and also causes us to react strongly and out of proportion to the situation.
That's
or
right.
it could also cause us to shut down completely in some cases.
You can kind of think of it like an injury. If you've hurt yourself in maybe part of your body, and that part of your body doesn't completely heal, so maybe you bang it and it's more sensitive, it hurts, you know what I mean? Like you bumped your elbow and it hurts more than the other elbow that you'd never had a problem with. You see, it's more sensitive to certain things.
Right, and so that's why it's important to understand what these triggers are, to be able to learn what areas need healing and also what to avoid in order to cope with the current situation.
Yeah, because a lot of times people are unaware of their triggers. And anxious people oftentimes don't realize how easily they're set off by some kind of abandonment, whether that's real or perceived.
Right.
And the avoidant often feels suffocated, and that is a huge trigger for them. So much of what we're talking about today kind of falls under that umbrella of I feel trapped, I feel smothered, I feel overwhelmed. This is too much for me.
Yeah, exactly. And when we say past hurts, we are referring to past relationships, but also early childhood experiences. So keep that in mind as we talk about this list of avoidant attachment style triggers.
Okay, so what's the first one we got today?
The first one we have is going on trips and vacations together. So we see this one very often. We get breakups around the time that, a vacation comes to an end, or maybe a couple weeks after a vacation, something like that. The reason being is that during a trip, you're spending 24/7 with that person most likely.
Yeah.
And so that's very different, even if you're not in a long distance relationship, even if you live down the road, a vacation, it's that intentional time, that intentional closeness that makes it a lot more intimate.
Yeah, it's so shocking because you think you're going to do something fun and you're having a getaway and you're traveling and seeing all kinds of cool places.
Right.
And yet it causes a lot of breakups. It really does.
Yep. And it's a lot more intense than even living with somebody for that period of the trip, if you think about it. Because when you're living together, you might go to work, you might do chores. You're not really as focused on the relationship versus when you're in a hotel room in Cancun and have nothing but the beach and your partner there to look at. So
it's just so overwhelming for them. And it's so confusing because you're like, I thought we were doing something fun. We were having a good time. And next thing I know, they started a fight and we broke up.
Yep. And a lot of people with avoidant attachment styles might have that feeling of, this is too good. This is too good, not only to be true, but also for me. There must be something wrong. There must be some sort of ulterior motive that's happening. It can be, that closeness can feel risky. It could also feel suspicious. And so sometimes those with avoidant attachment styles, create scenarios to sabotage whatever connection and whatever intimacy you have with the other person.
Yeah, when you were saying too good, Sometimes people feel like it's going so good and they're scared to lose it, so they sabotage it. Or sometimes people don't have good self-esteem and they think, I don't deserve this, and so they unconsciously sabotage it too.
Right.
I know it can be confusing. You're like, what? Why would they do that? Well, when you've been hurt so badly and you don't really believe that you are worth it, or that eventually somebody's going to see me for the way that I really am, and you're going to get tired of me. I heard yesterday, you're going to get bored of me.
Oh, wow.
Right? You're going to get bored of me. And so they break up with you because they're afraid you're going to expose them or see who they really are, and you're not going to like it.
Right. And also talking about triggers in the context of trauma, there are many incidences that could have happened in that person's childhood to make them think that good connection and close connection are unsafe. So a parent might have used this to manipulate a child after some sort of abuse might have happened, or as a way to appease the child after some sort of traumatic incident may have happened. So consider those being possibilities to your situation.
Yeah. All right. Another big trigger is if you bring up commitment too soon. Okay, so what does too soon mean? Well, it's kind of different for everybody, right? But anxious people tend to love that commitment, whereas avoidant people love that commitment or the idea of it at first, but then it actually happens and they're like, what have I gotten myself into? You know, I see a lot of avoidance will come on very strong, ironically, in the beginning, and then as the relationship goes on, they're like, what have I done? Like, and they start to freak themselves out, and the anxious person's like, but this is what they wanted. They thought they wanted it, but then when it becomes real, it's a lot more scary. So commitment is scary for most people for different reasons, right? And we all kind of like our independence. We don't like to be told what to do. We don't like feeling trapped. And so a lot of avoidant people get in a relationship and the anxious person maybe puts pressure on them to be the way they want them to be because of their anxiety. And then that avoidant person starts to feel trapped, like they can't do the things they want to do. Maybe they liked going out with their friends like 3 days a week. And as the relationship goes on, you're like, well, I want to see you 6 nights a week. I don't care if you go out 1 night a week, but I want you to spend, all your time with me. And the avoidant's like, oh, but I like going out with my friends.
Right.
And so it's tough to navigate that. But understanding that can really help you understand your partner and try and negotiate something that works for both of you, hopefully.
Right. And I'll also add to that it's not wrong to want commitment. A lot of times those who are dating people with avoidant attachment styles might feel some sort of shame for wanting more connection or for asking more. You might get that sense of, oh my gosh, am I being needy? When in reality, it's more of that person's fear of commitment that's causing you to see it in that way. So really also think about your own needs, your own wants, and your own desires for a relationship, and be realistic with what your partner can provide and where your partner is at commitment-wise.
The more enlightened you become about this stuff, the more you do the workbooks or the creative healing course, the easier it is to spot these things and the easier it is to change them in real time before you do something that escalates things and makes it worse.
Right. And we also want you to know that these are triggers for you to be aware of and work with your partner. We are not giving you this list of things to walk on eggshells about with your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing that can be challenging, is getting your needs met when you're afraid that person will abandon you if you ask them for it.
Right. Okay, so the next thing we have on our list is romantic events. So this could be anniversaries.
Going to Taco Bell.
So romantic. Like Applebee's was.
I don't go there anymore.
That was the end of that.
No, they won't let me in.
They saw you crying and kicked you out.
Yeah. His poster's up.
Oh no. So this could be weddings, anniversaries. This could also be spending holidays together. So this is also the same idea of these are very intimate moments, and they also carry a strong emotional charge. Also a historical charge, especially if they are holidays or even weddings, things like that.
Well, I think that also gets them to think about, like, oh, maybe this person that I'm dating wants to get married, or they're going to want to get married, and then they freak themselves out. Even if you don't bring it up,
right.
the idea of going to this wedding is like, oh my gosh, they're going to want to get married. I'm not ready to get married.
Or this is happening around me and to my peers. Am I next in line?
Yeah. And that even made me think about with the Applebee's girl, that her sister had gotten married around the time that we broke up.
Wow, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And also, family is very much involved in many of these events. You know, many times it's like an aunt's wedding or a cousin's wedding, something like this. And so that might be another reason to where it's like, not only is this a highly emotional event, but also a lot of my family will be there, a lot of my friends will be there. This will be including you into my circle.
And they might put pressure on that person.
Right, right.
So when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids?
Right.
When are you guys going to move in together? And then the avoidance like, boom.
Exactly.
They run.
Exactly. And this is not to say to not go to these events or to not spend these holidays with your partner, but just be aware that if you see your partner distancing around these times, this might be a trigger for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next one. Planning a future together. It's nice to talk about it. It's exciting to talk about and fantasize about those things. But actually going through with it is very different. So when you start to talk about, you know, getting married, getting engaged, moving in together, having kids, you know, they like the idea of it, but then they have to think about it. Like, how does this really impact me? Now I'm responsible for this child for the rest of my life. And my parents were terrible parents. Why would I want to do that?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's overwhelming. And, you know, they like the idea of it and they like that connection, but actually following through with it is not easy to do. And it feels like a big responsibility that scares them. You know, it's not that they completely don't want to do it. In most cases, it's that they are kind of going back and forth with it, but then they feel guilty about, oh my gosh, now it puts all this pressure on you, and oh, this person that I'm with really wants kids, and I don't even know if I want kids.
And if you think about it, I think a large reason as to why that is because it takes a large amount of vulnerability in order to make those steps. In order to get married and have a commitment with somebody, in order to start a family and have children, it does require emotional availability. And so for them, they might fantasize about that, but not have the tools in order to make it happen.
Yeah, I think the emotional availability is big. Being able to reflect is big. And I think the avoidants really struggle with that because I think they've had to do it their whole life to kind of survive.
So our next one is pressuring a partner for information. So you might be wanting to know certain things about your partner, their past, their family, their experiences that they're not ready to share with you. So they might feel forced into becoming emotional or getting into this deeply uncomfortable emotional conversation with you, and that can be very triggering because they might feel cornered in that way.
Even the present moment stuff is pressuring for them. What's wrong? What's wrong?
Nothing.
So I could tell something's wrong. Tell me what's bothering you.
I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it.
But
I don't want to talk about it.
Just talk to me.
I'm
just
not
tell
talking
me.
about it.
If you just tell me.
I'm triggered.
The anxious person always does that. They feel that disconnect, they get scared, and they want to repair it. Right. Tell me what's going on, what's wrong. You know how many breakups I hear about somebody will just pressure the avoidant and be like, what's wrong? Just tell me what's going on. And then the avoidant just snaps. It's like, I can't take this. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, this is too much.
Yeah. This is why we tell you when you work through these things, like doing the course and the workbooks, you really identify them and stop yourself from doing it and stopping a lot of breakups before they happen.
I think too with this one, we don't tell you this so that you stop asking important questions or having those hard conversations, because those I really believe are necessary for a healthy relationship. But just to think about maybe how you phrase it, think about the timing. We have other videos on how to talk about emotions with those with avoidant attachment styles, so please check those out. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, other triggers. Life events. Death in the family. You know, a lot of times avoidant people had parents that had mental health issues, alcoholism, drug addicts, obviously these are some of the more extreme ones, but when they lose a parent to alcoholism or drug addict, stuff like that, that really triggers them, brings up a lot of hurt, and yet they can't sit with it or think about it. They kind of want to isolate and go off on their own. If they feel too stressed about pressure at work, pressure from other areas, they kind of just want to shut down. And they kind of just I guess they just kind of decompress by themselves.
Right.
And you have to allow them the time and space to do it, which is hard.
Yeah. And if you think about it in the context of trauma and early childhood, this person likely had to deal with a lot of difficult emotions on their own and therefore isolated a lot as a child. And so that pattern is familiar to them as an adult. They might not even understand your efforts in trying to comfort them.
Yep.
The other thing is their capability, the tools that they have in order to deal with emotions. They might not feel like they can handle being emotionally present with you and emotionally present with whatever their issue is. So they might not feel like they have enough availability for that. So consider that perspective as well.
They just get so overwhelmed, yeah.
So our very last point that triggers the avoidant attachment style is their need for space being disrespected or denied. So this can be if they ask for some time to spend with friends, or if they ask for some time to spend alone, that they are not allowed to have it.
Yeah, they get overwhelmed and then they just can't handle it. And if they don't feel like they can have the space, they're going to take it for themselves.
Right.
They don't like to feel trapped and smothered and stuck and obligated. They can only handle so much of that. And it really will trigger you if you have an anxious attachment style that you're like, but I just want to know why. I just want to see you. Why is it so bad that I want to see you?
Yeah.
Well, not everybody can handle the same amount of closeness or intimacy that you can or that you want. And if you're going to be with somebody like that, you have to learn to adapt and adjust.
And I think, too, it's important for those with anxious attachment styles to understand that people's request for space isn't a personal attack on you, and it isn't indicative of how much they care about you or don't care about you. It's more of a personal need to decompress.
But it doesn't feel like it.
It does not.
It does not feel like it. It feels very personal, but in many cases, it's not.
And this is why I think communication is also really important.
Yeah.
To be able to come to some sort of compromise between space and closeness, because your needs are important too. So.
Absolutely. Obviously there are other triggers and areas that we're not able to cover in all in one video. And yes, some of these triggers will bother people that are even secure or anxious themselves or disorganized, obviously.
Yeah.
So these things that we covered potentially could upset anybody, okay, and overwhelm anyone. But it's just that they have a tendency to impact the avoidant people more than the other people.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, the list of triggers can be endless, especially in the context of trauma. I think I've said that about 10 times in this video. But it really can. It can be as simple as a word or a phrase that you say. It can be a sight. It can be a sound. It could be a texture. So it can be literally anything in...
A text from mom.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
It could be.
Mother's Day.
Oh my gosh. It could be many, many, many different things. So it's really important that if your partner is triggered, to remember that you are not the origin of their trauma.
Yep.
Their trauma is the origin of their trauma. There's many things that, we can take personally as we see our partner dealing with however they deal with things and however they learn to deal with things. But just remembering that you did not cause that original trauma.
That's right. And, it's their issue, really. But if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody that has those issues, you have to balance being fair with them with being fair with yourself. And that's not always easy to do. It's not always black and white. It's kind of like, well, how do I navigate this? Because, ultimately anybody you date, they're going to have issues. So, it's just a matter of what their issues are. Can you live with them? Can you work with them? And figuring that out. It's not always easy to do. But we all have our triggers. We all have things that traumatized us or upset us. And they still impact us in the present day that we're still sensitive in those areas. And the more you can become aware of those things, the more likely you can work through them and change them.
Well said.
Okay, so let us know what you thought of this video. You can leave a comment if you're anxious and you see these have triggered your avoidant partner in the past, or if you're avoidant. Let us know if you got triggered just hearing the video. And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. And now, Coach Victoria is available for Skype coaching.
Yes, finally. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Just click on Victoria at the top of the website. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon. To get my help personally, go to askcraig.net and click on Schedule Coaching and choose the option that works best for you. I do email coaching or Skype. To schedule a coaching with Margaret, click on Margaret on the top of the page and order a Skype with her. For the Knowledge Creative Healing course, click on the link at the top of the page and click Get Started Now.